Of all the ways of generating public space, the one that fascinates me most is revolution. I haven't lived through one, though I'm convinced that the book of Acts accounts for one. Some protests move in the direction of revolution, or at least they move in the direction of that ancient revolution in Jerusalem and its modern parallels in Poland and Kiev, all three of which created public space. So it's got to be the right kind of revolution. Some of the pro-Palestinian protests, the ones that remain nonviolent, might have some revolutionary tendencies. This past Sunday, Victoria and I visited the pro-Palestinian encampment at George Washington University and spoke at length with one of its student facilitators. Manny, a senior, got involved both because of the killing in Gaza and because of his own academic interest in geography, borders, and displaced people.
So, my area of study is, I'm a geography student, and my regional focus is Latin America. I think about borders, I think about migration, I think about displacement, because it's all things like border studies was kind of invented by Latino studies in the United States. Gloria Anzaldúa published Borderlands, and it opened a new field where people were thinking about borders in a really different way. And so I've just kind of been doing that and focusing on that. And so even though it's an entirely different region, at its core, it's a story of displacement. It's a story of borders. Drawing maps. I make maps. I'm a GIS minor. So that kind of ties into it all as well.
Manny told us that the university's president, Ellen M. Granberg, had just released a written statement that the encampment, which was then 11 days old, has always been unlawful.
I think today we received this email that said, finally received the email that I keep talking about, that's we've tried everything, and they list what they've tried to clear us out, to clear the community out. And all it says to me is that we don't have to do anything. What we're doing is plenty, Right. And there's so as of now, that I really think that's where we're at, is oh yeah, the administration is very aware that this community has a sense of power, organization, and structure for it to be a long-term thing, and it's up to the university, I guess, what they want to do about it. Because they say they've tried everything, and I'm have you tried divesting? Have you tried disclosing your financial ties? The answer is no, because if they had, then maybe we wouldn't be here anymore.
President Granberg prefaced her remarks with a statement that I'll adopt as well. Quote, "There is a dire humanitarian crisis occurring in Gaza that must be addressed, and I am personally grief-stricken by the suffering and loss of innocent lives occurring on both sides of this conflict." Close quote. Like her, I'm not here to take sides or even to discuss the crisis in Palestine. But President Granberg and I differ at the local level. She maintains that the students encamped on University Yard are trespassing, and she wants the encampment swept. I want to explore the encampment, its practices, and its tents as public spaces. I'm Bryce Tolpin. The previous morning, I had gone down to GW to see the encampment. I passed by the school's sports arena with George Washington Revolutionaries spelled out in large letters on its windows. I fell in line behind three students on their way back from Starbucks with a large order, apparently for early morning study. Finals started that morning and will go on for the rest of this week. I reached 21st and H. I walked past a few flashing police cars that were blocking the road to car traffic. Tents were set up for most of H Street between the cars. In front of GW's Graduate School of Political Management stretches University Yard, now filled with recreational tents of all sizes, shapes, and colors. I passed the Houdon statue of George Washington, now draped in a Palestinian flag and wearing a keffiyeh. The statue is what initially drew my attention to the encampment. Philip Kennicott's piece on the statue, published in the Washington Post the day before, points out that, quote, "Washington has been symbolically appropriated as a defender of the Palestinian people," close quote. The protests have found in Washington a fellow revolutionary.
It's a visual critique, it is. I think it's poignant. I think it's concise. I think it says a lot in terms of what it you can see it, right? And it's the central square with all these revs posters and things. And so I think there's a lot to say about the genocide that occurred at the birth of this nation versus the genocide we're facing now, and how you perceive the founding fathers as being like revolutionary for fighting for liberation, but now we're fighting for liberation for a different state, and that's being squashed by this one.
But what really took me the day before were the tents. It was about 8 a.m. I wanted to meet people. I've taught teens for almost 20 years, so I should have known better than to think I was going to find teenagers or young adults awake that early on a Saturday, especially during the school year. Almost everyone was asleep in their tents. A single policewoman was watching over the tents, and I stood in the middle of the encampment and took a video, turning 270 degrees. The tents are challenging this protest community. Most of the members have lots of protest experience, but not with encampments.
I think, so one thing we were really lucky about is that a lot of the infrastructure for like organizing an event and like a protest was already there in terms of the organizations that exist in the schools. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but like we call this like the DMV encampment as opposed to like the GW encampment because it's GW, Georgetown, American, George Mason, UMD, Noma Gallaudet, like there's representatives from each of those schools. And so they have done things before together. Specifically like the SJPs, you know, the Students for Justice in Palestine. I mean, we being the students at GW, like other clubs came in and made a student coalition for Palestine, and like technically it's a different org. But anyway, so there's been coordination between the schools all year in terms of demonstrations and things. So it definitely was already a framework to build upon in terms of student organizing, which is really cool to see. I also think like we're in DC, so it's not like it's no one's first protest. I mean, if it would be, it'd be a little weird. I'm not gonna judge, but it's fine. And I think that explains a lot in terms of things that are going really well, because it is no one's first protest, and like we're kind of used to planning kind of things like this. Other things that are going like that we're hitting rough patches is because this is a different kind of protest, and we're building off of like a framework for a more for a more traditional protest, you know, and like that is what we're building off. So we're gonna miss things here and there, but I think we're making it work.
Is this the first time you guys have been in a protest that involves encampments?
Yeah, I can pretty confidently say that for everyone else too. Yeah, we're kind of winging it.
Does that add any extra pressure from the administration, from other authorities, the fact that it's an encampment?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Right around the time I was walking alone amidst the tents, someone at my alma mater, the University of Virginia, was quietly deleting an exception for recreational tents from a document disallowing tents on grounds. UVA had its own pro-Palestinian encampment last week, and when the school's administration told them to take the tents down, they did. When sympathetic faculty pointed out to the protesters, though, that the school had made an exception for recreational tents, they put them back up. When the administration protested, these faculty members pointed out the exception to the administration. The university later claimed that the guidelines exception was a mistaken characterization of the rule prohibiting tents, but they didn't make that clear until they and Virginia's governor sent the state police in riot gear to arrest almost all the protesters and take down their tents. The protesters were, by all accounts, peaceful. GW's president Granberg would have swept the tents when GW students first erected them too, but the District of Columbia Police wouldn't do it. What is it about tents that makes authorities wish to remove them? Ukraine's 2014 Maidan Revolution may offer some answers. The revolution began as a protest by mostly students, but when Ukraine's Russia-backed government beat the students in late November of 2013, the country was incensed. They joined the students at the Maidan, Kiev Central Square. In her 2017 book, The Ukrainian Night, Yale history professor Marcy Shore wrote that, quote, people erected tents, built bonfires, and cooked soup in iron cauldrons. Donations were abundant. Food, clothing, and medicine were distributed without charge, close quote. But things weren't as clear-cut for Manny and me. His friend Anna had entrusted her gummy worms to him, and he had eaten too many. Victoria was shocked that I had eaten any at all. But I'm here to learn.
Yeah.
I bought these.
She did. She is the source. I do. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I apologize. I'm so sorry.
He shared them with me, so
I did offer one. I hope that's okay.
It is okay.
You ate gummies?
I did. They're actually good now.
These are the best ones you'll ever have.
Well, yeah, I love
chocolate.
that. I love that brand. I've gotten their gummy bears.
Yes, this brand is
But
top
I have
tier.
never seen him eat anything like that. So.
I'm totally into that one. Those are good, but
That's
these
so
are
exciting.
amazing.
Yes, I agree.
They're fruity. I mean, they're
Yes,
got
they're
great
very
flavor.
good.
Cigarette?
I'm okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's a crazy offer though.
I like have to run in and I can't take this indoors.
I bet Anna would take it.
Yeah, fine. Thanks.
So now, is the food donated, or how do you get the food?
Yes, we have too much food, and I mean that so sincerely, so sincerely. People, what I've noticed in terms of like bringing it back to the community aspect, people want to feel a part of the community, and I mentioned like earlier some things we're getting right, some things we're getting wrong. A lot of people love to come by and they love to stay, but I feel like where we're failing is giving them a sense of ownership over the community and really feeling like, because the buy-in's there, they love to be here, but I want to, like, they try to, there's definitely like something to contributing and thus feeling like an ownership part of it, right? Like when you do something for I mean, this is practically like voting, for example. Like when you vote, you perform a civic duty and you feel part of and I genuinely believe that like people feel this way, and so they bring food. they bring food and they say, hey, like, where can I put this? I just want to feed everyone. Like, I want to feel like I participated, which is absolutely a great sentiment to have. And it is like their little way of like voting and saying like, oh, like I've put some of myself into this and some of my labor, like mixed my labor with it to then make it like something I'm a part of. So we actively have programs to run this food, like the extra food to like houseless people, to homeless people, and like other mutual aid organizations that we've all been in touch with, like since before this. And so the answer to who is like, oh God, anyone who feels like they like want to be involved and don't know how, their first thought is just food, right? Which I think makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. In American culture too, like you show up to a party, you bring a bottle of wine. Like it is mostly like people who are like external in the community. Like the other night we had some people come in from Columbia Heights and bring in like watermelon con tajin, like with tajin, like some chili seasoning. Yeah, and so it's like it's these things. Right. We're also seeing like a lot of falafel, and I think like those little things were like, okay, watermelon with tajin from Columbia Heights and like falafel from a specific like shawarma place is like another way that people are contributing in terms of like the idea that this is a community, but also that it's like a unified front against like oppressive powers in that sense, where like you're able to share a bit of your community and a bit of your like background and culture from pockets where like it also like how to describe this? Like Columbia Heights is an example, right? Like it's a Hispanic community that like that's how they like preserve and like create their own order is like by preserving these Hispanic foods and things that I'm always a big fan of course. I'm also Hispanic. And so it's fun to be able to like bring those cultural things to the table and say like, not only am I personally like involved in the effort and the issue and I want to contribute, but also like there's a deep like personal tie and understanding that like your people want liberation in the same and have been displaced in the same way like my people have in the past.
A similar thing happened on the Maidan, but on a much larger scale. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians took part in the Maidan Revolution, and people with doctorates were speaking with peasants for the first time in their lives. The Maidan, Shore writes, quote, was a rarely encountered feat of civil society, not only a protest movement, but also a parallel polis, close quote. Jerusalem's revolution was similar too, with Peter claiming that the Spirit was falling on male and female slaves. The revolutionaries, quote, kept up their daily attendance at the temple, close quote, a practice bearing no resemblance to Western notions of going to church. Instead, Luke's report indicates that the revolutionaries gathered every day, quote, in the temple courtyard, the central public space in Jerusalem, close quote, according to theologian Richard A. Horsley. They were all together, Horsley says, in the sense of the assembly of Israel. Jesus' disciples were setting up an alternative civil society in Jerusalem's public space, just as the Kiev revolutionaries set up an alternative civil society in the Maidan. There's revolutionary discipline, too. Paul's letters to the city churches are filled with reminders of how to practice a life of unity, caring, and self-restraint in these alternative civil societies. I questioned Manny about a prominent whiteboard with 16 community guidelines. Among them were transparency in communication, no sexual relationships, respect one another, and be disciplined.
There's definitely, like, I think at first we had a bit of an edge in terms of there was a very anticipated and like kind of excited attitude, because this was like something revolutionary in the sense that, like, yeah, we put tents down. They told us to be gone by noon, and then they told us to be gone by 7, and we blew past both of those deadlines, and then they put barricades up and all these things that kind of felt like, yeah, like also disruptive, but also like unknown territory. Like, we don't know what we're doing here. And so I think with that came the response, which was very, very disciplined and very focused. Because to get past these like kind of repressive and like anxious times, you just got to stay focused on Gaza. Like that's our motto here. You wear your keffiyeh around because like it is that visual reminder of why we're here. And so there was a sense of like strong discipline and strong focus, because like, yeah, it sucked to not have access to running water, for like 2 days. But like, what's happening in Gaza is so much worse, and that's why we're here. Barricades came down, and it became, because we always intended it to be a community encampment. But when the barricades came down, it truly became one, right? Because the people were able to come in and out, and it was a lot less of like a tense place to be, because Metro PD officially said they wouldn't sweep it, like they denied the university's request. And I bring all this up because part of the reason we put up the community guidelines is because a lot of people who were here in those earlier days of the encampment felt like we lost a bit of that edge and focus and discipline, just in the sense that, yeah, like people were able to come in and out more freely, and like it felt a little bit more like a big picnic sometimes during the day, with a lot of students who were initially turned away by the threat of the university action. And once they realized like that threat had kind of gone away for a bit, they more people are here, easier to come. So I definitely don't think repression is needed to be revolutionary, like at all, right? Like at the end of the day, those were obstacles in our path, not at all like columns of like what we're trying to do, or like foundations of what we're trying to do. But people did feel like a bit of that revolutionary attitude and like discipline went away. So the guidelines went up as a reminder to everyone. And I think right now we're working on just getting it back.
As far as enforcing the guidelines, it comes down to being accountable to the community. The community has a very horizontal organizational structure, and it's a bit like anarchy in the best sense of the word. People take turns being in charge.
So why, I see some people in yellow vests.
Yes.
What is that?
Yeah, so we're called marshals. And the full job description is just kind of make sure everything's all right.
Okay.
That being said, there are like practical elements to it. Occasionally we'll get like what someone might call a counter-protester, what others might call an agitator, someone who's not really happy with what we're doing here, and is usually recording and looking around.
Hoping for something embarrassing.
Yes, hoping for something to happen or attracting attention. So in the case that like does become an issue, it is the marshal's job to de-escalate the situation, but more specifically de-escalate like our encampment community members. Like that's a huge focus of ours. Like our policy is just to not interact with them, with like an agitator, with a counter-protester. So it's not about reasoning with them at all. Like that's not what we're trained to do. We're trained to like look at our community members and say like, hey, leave them alone, don't talk to them. Like I know you have strong feelings about this, because this is a very personal issue for a lot of people, and like I'm not gonna blame someone who's like actively losing family members in Gaza for like getting heated up if someone comes in here with like agitating things to say. So that's mostly like if there's like a big role the marshals have, it's that one. Other than that though, it serves as an easy indicator for questions, because like you said, there are like specific places for things, and like it is a very functional kind of, I don't want to call it a society, I feel like it's giving us too much credit, but like it's a functional thing. And so we answer questions for that.
We took up half of Manny's 2-hour stint that day as a marshal, but all things must pass. Despite this spring-up parallel polis with its self-government, its discipline, and its joy in public space, the community is not designed to last.
It's a good question about like summer, like college students leave for the summer. We have this slight benefit that for a lot of college students around the country, they leave for the summer to come to DC for the internship. So a lot of us stay in DC anyway, right? Because like we kind of have that advantage. So I do think there's a good group of us that can stay in DC and like continue this going. I really hope that we don't have to be here till the fall, you know? Because I think as much as like everyone here will tell you that like they love the community here and stuff, at the end of the day, it's still like a protest with material demands. Like the goal is for us to leave because like those demands will have been, resolved.
Whenever this particular community ends, its participants will have one incredibly memorable experience in public space that likely will make them wish for more. Shore calls revolution, quote, an encounter with one's deepest selfhood through an encounter with others, close quote. I saw that these protesters, by living in an alternative polis, were getting a taste of that this spring.
Well, there's a lot there. I mean, like I said, I need to, once this is all over, maybe I'll sit down and write.
About, I think, like living it out.
Right.
You're studying it, but then having the opportunity to live it, that's just amazing.
Because a lot of people are like, what about your graduation? What about your commencement? I'm like, look, if I want to celebrate what I've learned, like, that's what I'm doing here. Yeah. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't like, if I didn't learn what I've learned, And I think it's influencing, like, this is my celebration of what I've learned, is being able to say, like, okay, I can read international, like, affairs, I can understand, like, what's going on, but also enacting this community work and things like that, so.
Right.
For me, this is a bigger capstone than anything else.
Exactly, as a capstone, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. Well,
I love to talk, so I apologize for keeping you.
It's awesome. I was very grateful.
Thank you for listening to Public Spaces. On our next episode, we'll encounter Casa Chilagua and a few of its members who gave up the American dream to live in the reality of a beautiful, underprivileged neighborhood. Until then.